Hi, this is Matt once again. We're about to another video, and this is a paid request from Travis. Thank you so much for that. And for those interested, requesting any type of videos, feel free to send it either directly to my PayPal. I do have a Cash App as well. Links are down below in the info box, and I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. And for those who sent them, thank you. I do appreciate it. And this is for Cruising, the 1980 film that you got Al Pacino. You got Paul Sorvino in the film, Joe Spinell's in a bit part, Mike Starr. I mean, a lot of names I'm going to mention, and it's pretty decent cast in this. And it's directed by William Friedkin, who of course did The Exorcist, The French Connection, To Live and Die in L.A., among many other films. Rest in peace to him. And this is a film that was pretty controversial at the time. It was known to be anti-gay and all this other stuff. Watching the film, I don't think it's that at all. I think it's showing a subculture that did exist, that does not represent all gay people, but there is a part of a group that is into hardcore S&M, that type of thing. And that's what it's focusing on. And the story is you have some person going around killing gay people, and so the police need to put someone undercover. Paul Sorvino, who was in Money Talks, he was in The Stuff with Larry Cohen. Like I said, he's the captain, and he gets Al Pacino to go undercover. Al Pacino is with Karen Allen from Raiders of the Lost Ark, which actually she would do after this, as well as Starman. And she plays the girlfriend, and pretty much the rest of the film is Al Pacino being undercover, meeting this neighbor who happens to be gay, and kind of becoming friends with him, going from club to club and kind of learning about what's going on, whether dancing with them, talk with them, learning certain things, certain rules, certain stuff that he sees. And then every once in a while, like every, 20, 30, I would say like every 30 minutes or so, the killer kills another person. Which sometimes could be fairly bloody in the stabbings. Either he kills them if they're tied down, or kills them like in a park somewhere, or during a movie theater, watching a dirty movie. Other recognizable people. Powers Booth is in one scene, one of the more memorable scenes, where Al Pacino's learning about the secret of the handkerchiefs, which I'll get to that later. And rest in peace, Powers Booth. Always great to see him. Even in a big role like this, it's nice to see. James Remar, who I guess you would say is kind of a boyfriend to the neighbor that Pacino's becoming friends with. Very young James Remar. I mean, this is before he did 48 Hours, and this is after he did The Warriors. He gets into almost a bit of a scuffle with Pacino's character. And Cruising is one of those films that I have seen this before. Now, I was never a big fan of this film. I'm still not. This ain't my movie. I mean, William Friedkin, he's one of those guys that I like. The Hunted, that's my favorite of his. I don't mind The Guardian. I don't mind To Live and Die in L.A. I respect his craft. But this one, I think the cast does a good job. Al Pacino with a crazy perm. You tell, apparently he was uncomfortable while making the film. Him and Friedkin did not get along, because Friedkin, I just wanted Richard Gere, could not get Richard Gere, got Pacino. Didn't seem like he wanted Pacino in the first place. And then Friedkin says, well, Pacino didn't do anything, and then Pacino's like, well, this guy wouldn't tell me anything. I don't know, like Friedkin, with his behavior, the way he treated people, I know, like Roy Scheider did not like worked with. There's a lot of people that did not like work with Friedkin. He seemed like a real pain in the fucking ass. to be on set with. So, funny guy when you see interviews. I didn't rest in peace, but some funny interview clips. But he seemed like a real pain in the fucking ass to work with. So, I mean, it's well directed. There's definitely a strong score, like a music, the song use, the showing things is not typical, especially for a film in that day and age, to show how much of, well, I mean, honestly, just how much of the homosexual circuit that's able to, because that was still a very taboo thing back then. It's very, very taboo. Because you're not supposed to think about it, you're not supposed to talk about it, you're not supposed to mention it, you're not supposed to think it's a reality, and if you do, then you're supposed to be making fun of it, you're supposed to be saying these slurs. But like I said, this wasn't, I don't think he was really doing that. It was just showing a subculture to its ability of what was going on during that time. That there were clubs and there were places where people would dance and be half-assed naked and fisting and all this stuff. Ain't my kind of club. Say that. But while I do like the acting, I do think it's well made with certain cinematography and how they make the clubs look, and I just thought the story was really lacking. I say that because it kind of just goes willy-nilly, but it doesn't really dive as deep as it thinks it does. Like, it seems like we should be diving deeper into the psyche of Al Pacino's character. And is he afraid because he thinks he's a straight guy and there's no way to be a gay guy because it's so awful to be a gay guy in that day and age? Or is he having doubts? Is he having sex with Karen Allen because he wants to prove that he's a man, or something else is going on? And you think it's going into that depth, but I don't think it really does. And honestly, I think a lot of it is more surface level than some people let on. I would prefer them trying to go a bit deeper into the psychological aspects and the psyche aspects of it. But I don't think it really does that. Instead, it's, okay, we're in a club and hey, there's a guy being fisted. Okay. Cool story, bro. Karen Allen is barely a fucking character in this, and I love Karen Allen. But she's barely a fucking character in this movie. Kinda, I gotta go undercover, okay. Once while he comes home, fucks her, or she asks a question, he doesn't answer, and then at the end, they've moved on and she's there with Pacino. I mean, they don't really do anything with her character. I think Karen Allen wasn't as popular at this time, because again, this is before Raiders of the Lost Ark. This is before Starman and these other films, so. But still, it's a waste of Karen Allen. She had nothing to do. But I don't know, maybe some dialogue, some conversations about, maybe Pacino talking to the neighbor. How did you know when you were gay, and how did you know it was right? How did you know it was wrong, and it's not wrong? How did you know it wasn't wrong? Were there people telling you it was wrong? Well, it doesn't want to explain anything. I'm not saying it's got to have narration like theatrical cut of fucking Blade Runner, but it seems like stuff it wants to be deeper on with the context of homosexuality and the fear of losing your manhood, and that's why there's scenes where Pacino's pumping up and, yeah, I gotta pump up because it's manly, and you could assume that stuff, and maybe you just say, well, that's what Friedkin was going for, is that you just will assume and you'll bring those things to the table, and there you go. But a little bit more depth, a little bit more insight, script-wise, writing-wise, would have sufficed. Would have been nice. Because really, like, what do we know about Al Pacino's character? Nothing. We don't know his backstory. We don't really know much about what he did before the academy, what kind of jobs he was doing, or at least police academy or non-cop jobs he was doing. What was his home life like? I don't know. Like, we don't really get to know. There's no deep conversation between him and Karen Allen. So again, we don't really get to know who Al Pacino, his character, is. And if he's the fear of, oh my god, I'm going to be a straight guy, that I'm going to be afraid to turn gay, if that's what it's going for, I would sit there and go, well, why is he turning? If he is turning that way, why is he turning that way? Give us some insight. Is it because he could be more comfortable talking with the guy, but not comfortable talking with his girlfriend? Is it because his girlfriend's more judgmental, but here's a guy who's less judgmental and he could be more calm with? Or, and the stuff he sees, okay, he sees half-naked half-naked men, and mostly sees people kind of just watching him, talking, smoking, talking. Thankfully, we don't see, but we just see pretty much him, a guy strapped up, a guy lubed up with his fist, and we get the. I don't need to see more detail. So, I honestly would say this is done more tastefully than some people make it out to be. But maybe it should have been more. I don't want to say hardcore because I don't need to see people people fucking. But maybe with the ratings board and stuff, he could not go further that he wanted to really make it seem as if the grime and the area just affecting his mind day after day after day. No, mostly day after day, we just see him watching and talking and doing the dance. They got a bullet up his ass, vibrating bullet. What the fuck? But it's like, well, why is he acting that way? What's the inside of him acting that way? Is it deal with someone with his home life? But I'm assuming the reason we don't get that is because of the fucking ending, which I don't like, where, spoilers, he thinks this is one guy, but it's not that guy. Then he thinks this is other guy, goes up to him, the guy pulls out a knife, but then Pacino stabs him, kills him. So granted, while the guy didn't swipe at him, you say it's still self-defense. But then it seems like the case is solved. But then like a day or two or three later, that gay neighbor, he's been killed. And we don't know if it was from his boyfriend. We don't know if it was from someone else, because there was hints that he would go out and get himself in crazy trouble. Or was it Pacino? Because the last scene in the film is Karen Allen, like he's gone to detective and they're in a much nicer place, and she puts on this coat and sunglasses, much like the killer wore. And Pacino is shaven. Then he looks at the camera. And then ends. And I'm sitting there going, so what? He's the killer? I can only assume when you have that and you have Pacino like, I got away with it. It's more than likely, I would say 90% chance that they're saying he's the killer. But then a lot of it doesn't make fucking sense, because when the guy talks, it sounds nothing like Pacino's voice. And nowhere do we ever see or get the idea that he's a guy that could be a fucking ventriloquist. When you don't have to be that, but A guy that knows how to change his speech that much. I mean, there's even a mark on the killer has like a mark here, which Pacino doesn't have that mark. Does it show up close to the killer's face, and he's got like a mark right here, which Pacino never has. And then it's like, okay, well, what would be the point of killing the neighbor when that would draw more attention to you? Because, you want to pin it on this guy. Let's say he's the killer. So he pins it on this guy. The guy who he stabs at the end. After the guy pulled a knife on him. And they're like, oh, we found his fingerprints match. So if we're assuming that Pacino falsified evidence and planted the evidence in order for this guy to take the rap, why then would he almost immediately go and kill this neighbor guy? And the cops go, well, Pacino was one of the last people that saw him and knew of him. And wouldn't that bring unwanted, unwarranted attention onto yourself? You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, it's just like if you go with the theory that Pacino is the killer, it makes the film make a lot less sense. But then at the same time, it'd be like, oh well, that's why he's not getting into any insight of much of Pacino's character because we don't want to give it away. And so then I'm sitting there going, so what's the fucking point of the film? What was the fucking point of the movie? Now, I like the performances. I think Pacino had a rather subdued, intense performance at times. It was cool, like I said, it was cool to see Powers Booth and the whole thing with the handkerchiefs, which, what do they mean? Well, the yellow on one end, that means you like diving water sports. Like you give them, the other, if it's in the other pocket, you receive them. And the other is you suck in and get sucked. I forget what color handkerchief that is. I can only assume what the red means. Probably pain, I would assume. S&M pain. I would assume that's what it is. And like again, if you put it in one pocket, it means one thing. You put it in another pocket, it means another thing. So. But yeah, it was cool to have Powers Booth in there. James Remar, again, he's the boyfriend of the neighbor, and there's a bit where Pacino's looking for the neighbor, and James Remar is threatening him, and then pulls out a knife, and Pacino's kind of looking at a knife. They just backs away and walks off. So I guess you assume either A, he's contemplating on killing this guy, but it's like, well, there'd be more dirty work for me and be a hell of a mess to clean up, or to show that, okay, here's a guy that pulled a knife on him, he'll back up this time, but the next time someone pulls a knife on him, which is, if he was the killer, this other guy, then I'm not going to take a chance, I'm just going to stab him right off the bat. So yeah, I just didn't like the story. I didn't care for the story. I didn't care for the pacing of the film. I think it's a good looking movie with some nice direction, some nice camera, like things being reflected off people's sunglasses or just certain ways the piece is shot. I wish Karen Allen had more to do. The very first scene is Joe Spinell and Mike Starr as patrolmen. And that's because they're cops and they get these two guys who are dressed up as women and pretty much force them into sexual things. So when the one complains about to Paul Sorvino's like, oh, did you get their name? Did you get their badge number? You know what? There's a lot of people that pretend to be cops. And then that's the thing. Were they people pretending to be cops, or were they actual patrolmen? I don't know. They have a cop car, so I'm guessing they're cops. And I thought they were going to be a bigger part of the movie. Like Mike Starr, he would go on to be, if you remember Dumb and Dumber, the guy in the middle of Jim and Jeff Daniels. You know what's the most annoying sound in the world? And he's the one's like, guys, guys, guys. That's Mike Starr. And he's been a lot of stuff. Gas man. How do they know I got gas? And then Joe Spinell, I mean, the same year was Maniac, so maybe that's why he wasn't in this that much. But I mean, he was in bit parts in the first two Rocky films. There's that bit where Steven Spielberg, the Oscars were announced for in the year that Jaws would have been nominated. I think like Jaws was nominated for all these Oscars except Best Director. And Spielberg's like, "Oh, I didn't get it," and then Joe Spinell's like, "Huh? It's nominated for Best Picture. Who did it? Huh? Who made the picture? Huh? Was it the caterers? It wasn't these guys. It was the director." And like playing an act, but it's a fun bit you can find on YouTube, I'm sure. But I like Joe Spinell. He has that certain look, and I wish he was in the film more. Again, I thought they were going to do more because you see him pop up two or so times. Either in the club kind of looking at Pacino or outside walking by looking at Pacino. But then you never hear from him again. And I know this won't be as popular to say, but I kind of wish it was just more of a straightforward. I mean, even Sea of Love, I would say I liked more. I would say if I want a movie that's about Pacino looking for a killer and then kind of his closeness with certain people is affecting his judgment, Sea of Love, I thought, did that a lot better. And I didn't. At the end of the day, I think that's what it is. It's just as I'm describing this film, I'm like, well, I'd rather just go watch Sea of Love. It just doesn't have the day stuff in it, which I don't have a problem with because I don't care if someone's gay or straight. I don't care. They're not doing anything wrong to me. They're not hurting me. They're not stealing my money. They're not stealing my food. So I don't give a shit. Two dice kiss, okay? I'm not there. I don't care. I don't give a fuck. When one of them sucks your dick, I don't know. I'll close my eyes and imagine someone else. I don't fucking know. I don't give a shit. I don't fucking care. So no, it's not me. Because someone's going to be, well, you're just homophobic. That's why you're not giving this film a 10 out of 10. No. It's for the reasons I said. And I don't think this is god-awful film. I know I'll make it sound like a rant. Again, I think it's a well-directed picture that's well-acted. Does have a certain tone to it. But again, just the story... I think the characters could have used a lot more depth and a lot more tangible stuff to really get to know these characters and dive deep into the psyche. And it seems like that's what the movie wants to be, but it doesn't really go in that direction. It's more just, he's hanging out in this club, he's hanging out in this club, he's hanging out in this club, then a person dies. He fucks Karen Allen. Then he's at this club, then, there's a bit where this guy whose days who Pacino thinks is the killer, and they're interrogating him, and they're beating the shit out of him. And then Pacino's mad about how they're brutalizing this guy. But at the same time, I'm like, other than you hanging around, I need more than just him hanging around as to why now he feels these things, these ways. Maybe he meets a guy who's gay, but again, it's being nicer to him than people he's known in his own life, or being much more attentive, or much more understanding, or much more comfortable to talk to, or comfortable to hang out with, or there's other people that he feels sorry for, or he hears a story about the mom or the dad, the parents kicked them out or threatened them, or the dad. Maybe a scene where one of them like tells Pacino about maybe the dad threatened them with a gun and told him to get the fuck out or I'm gonna shoot you. He's like, I'm your son. No, not anymore. And call me, the word that rhymes with maggot. Not going to say the name. That's when you should dive deep into that and have this guy understanding, and either have him or have it be about a cop who is just with other cops, just as maybe homophobic, but then being undercover, he learns that they're just regular people like you and me. Well, there's some women who are into, I guess, there are women that are into that. I'm not into that, but there's women into that, just like there's men. I don't know. I'm just babbling and rambling about. But that's what I would have preferred more of, that type of character work. For me, at least. Because, there's not really action. It's not like you don't get the Friedkin chases like French Connection or To Live and Die in L.A. Yeah, it's not. I guess you'd call it, some people say maybe a giallo. I guess in a way. There's a couple kills. There's maybe, what, 3 or so? Mostly with stabbing. But even then, compared to other giallos, where the death scenes are much more intricate and much more exquisite and unique and weird and creative. There's just more stabby. I don't know, that's just me. Again, when I think of William Friedkin, like I said, I don't mind The Guardian for what it is. I like The Hunted with Tommy Lee Jones. I liked, what was that one with Matthew McConaughey? Can't believe I forgot what the hell it was called. I reviewed it not that long ago. Killer Joe. I liked Killer Joe. So, I don't mind to live and die in L.A. I'm not big on. I may not be big on the ending, but I respect what the ending was doing, so I can understand that. And it was ballsy, and I give credit to that. And there's some really good, not just music, but action, and some really good pieces of filmmaking to live and die in L.A. that I definitely respect. Here, I would never see this film again. Whether it's Pacino, I would just rather watch Scarface, and Justice for All, other films of that nature during this time period. But with that said, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye for now.